Welcome, everyone. We'll get started in just a few moments, but looks like 60 people are already in here, so welcome. Okay, and good afternoon and welcome to the Multicultural Open Houses Asian American Cultural Center Open House. You are welcome to send any technical questions to the host through the chat. You can use the chat key to just chat and say where you're from, and I see buddies from New York City. This voice is originally from New York City. Please use the Q&A function to ask any questions throughout the presentation. And if we don't get to your question, you're welcome to put it in the chat or follow up after the meeting. Just a reminder, this session is being recorded and will be shared after the meeting on the Multicultural Open Houses website. But without further ado, I am so honored to introduce the leadership team of the Asian American Cultural Center, Juliana Yi and Shiraz Iqbal.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, I guess, depending on where you're tuning in from. Thank you, Moira, and the admissions team for inviting us and holding space for us. As Moira mentioned, my name is Juliana Yi. I use she, her pronouns, and I direct the Asian American Cultural Center, and I also have the pleasure of serving as an assistant dean of Yale College. I actually was born and raised in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. So any Malaysians out there in the crowd, feel free to put it in the chat. And I came to the US over a decade ago as an international student. And you know, life had it so that I somehow ended up here in this position. And you know, it has been a pleasure. And I want to turn it over to my counterpart and partner in crime, Shiraz Iqbal.
Thanks, Dini. Hi, everyone. I'm Shiraz Iqbal. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the Assistant Director for the Asian American Cultural Center, as well as a Program Manager for Student Organizations for Yale College. I was born in Pakistan and moved to the US when I was a few months old back in 1990. So I've been a Long Islander growing up, and then I've moved around to different states since. I think I'm gonna first go ahead and share my screen. We'll have our staff introduce themselves as well. So let me share our screen and I'll hand it off to you all. Here we go.
So in the kind of one-ish hour that we have with you, we have 5 of our amazing student leaders on campus who will actually be our AACC panelists today. Shiraz and I will play moderators for you, and we also will welcome your questions towards the latter half of our time together. So without further ado, can we have Jennifer kick us off with introductions?
Yeah, thank you, Dini. So hi, my name is Jennifer. I also go by Jen. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm from La Cañada, California, which is really close to Pasadena, which is really close to Los Angeles. And at Yale, I am a senior at the moment, and I am the Aacc Silliman College Peer Liaison. Yeah.
Thanks, Jennifer. And next up, Michael Chen.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be joining you all today. My name is Michael. I use he, him, his pronouns. I am a sophomore in Branford College, studying political science and ethnicity, race, and migration. And I am the AACC peer liaison for Branford College this year. And I am currently doing the semester remotely from Alameda, California, which is my home. So shout out to all the California people on this webinar right now.
Yay, thank you, Michael. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, the Peer Liaison Program is a Yale College peer mentoring program that we have for all Asian identifying first years, as well as predominantly underrepresented populations on campus. So next up is Rusty.
Hi everyone, I'm Rusty. I use he, him pronouns. I'm one of the first year coordinators this year for the Aacc. I am currently undecided with my major, but I'm looking to chemical engineering and also ethnicity, race, and migration. And I'm super excited to see you all today.
Thank you, Rusty. And next is Sunaira.
Hi everybody, my name's Sunaira. I use she, her, hers pronouns. As I've already shared in the chat, I'm a New York girl, born and raised in Ozone Park, which is in Queens. I'm also an FYC. I'm a Bangladeshi American, and I'm probably gonna go into ethnicity, race, and migration, and I'm super excited to virtually meet you guys.
Thanks, Sunaira. And last but certainly not least, V.
Hey, turns out we're all ER&M majors, but I'm V. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a senior in Branford. I'm on the political action education team of the Aacc. I'm an ER&M major. Yeah, hyped to meet y'all.
Thanks, V. And maybe some folks want to drop what ER&M is in the chat. But before we move forward, we also want to take a moment to acknowledge the lands that we are on. Shiraz?
Yeah, so we want to take a moment to acknowledge the lands in which we are settled upon. We are coming from many places today, and we want to acknowledge the ancestral homelands and traditional territories of Indigenous peoples who have been here since time immemorial, and to recognize that we must continue to build our solidarity and kinship with Native peoples across the Americas and across the globe. Yale University and the Asian American Cultural Center, located in New Haven, Connecticut, acknowledges that Indigenous peoples and nations, including the Mohegan, Mashantucket Pequot, Eastern Pequot, Schaghticoke, Golden Hill Pagosset, Niantic, and the Quinnipiac and other Algonquin-speaking peoples, have stewarded through generations the lands and waterways of what is now the state of Connecticut. You can find this land acknowledgement on Yale's website as well. We also acknowledge that this country would not exist if it was not for the free enslaved labor of Black people. We honor the legacy of the African diaspora and Black life, knowledge and skills stolen due to violence and white supremacy.
Thanks all. And Sunaira also shared a link to a website where if you are like, what, native land, whose land am I on? That's actually a great resource and somewhere to start, and something that we are also learning every day. You know, thinking about the fact that we're immigrant settlers and what does that mean to our time and place and positionality here, both at Yale and just across the country and in the world. So without further ado, we want to start our panelists off with a nice and warm question about telling us a little bit about your journey to Yale and why Yale? Why did you end up here at Yale?
Okay, I can start. So my teacher, Mr. Decker, first told me about Yale, and I don't think I ever really thought about the Ivy League, because I don't know, Ivy Leagues are scary, you know, you get this sense of imposter syndrome, or you get like, I don't know, it seems like hard and distant and not homey. But when I actually came here, I like fell in love with like the family here and the community here. There's one of our cafeteria workers, Annette, is such a sweetheart, and I've met so many other people like her, like Kane and Darnell, and like there's so many people, you guys don't know these names, but if you do come here, seek them out. They're lovely, and there's so many people like them here. And also just sort of remind yourself that just because this place is an Ivy doesn't mean it's, you know, unattainable or, you know, I don't know, less homey than other colleges. This has been like a really, really super cool place. I also thought it was cool that the mascot was a bulldog, because I love dogs. And yeah, I think the fact that Yale has distributional requirements also forces me to explore a little bit more than I might be comfortable to. So that's another reason that I really wanted to go here, in addition to just like the work we still have to do with the New Haven community. Like Shiraz addressed like a lot of the issues that are still going on and a lot of the things that this institution could do more to, I guess, talk about or assist. So I wanted to sort of be part of a community rebuilding things. But yeah.
Thanks, Sunaira. Anyone else want to jump in on that question?
Yeah, I think for me, when I was going through the college application process, like college was just a very intimidating thing, right? I didn't want to go somewhere far away from home. I wanted to be close by family. And you know, after really looking into Yale, I think there were a couple things that stood out right away. The first was the residential college system. So for y'all who don't know, Yale has 14 residential colleges under Yale College. And so immediately you get immersed into a really intimate microcosm of the greater Yale community. And that was something that was really important for me, to have smaller communities that wouldn't be intimidating or overwhelming. And then also the Asian American Cultural Center played a really large role in my decision to come to Yale. I remember during Bulldog Saturday my year, just stumbling into the AACC open house. And I think it was Dini who gave me a personal tour of the AACC and talked a little bit about the history of Asians and Asian Americans at Yale. And, you know, the cultural centers played such a big role too, because as someone who didn't really explore, you know, my cultural background and heritage in high school, that was something I really wanted to focus on in college. And so those two things were really big factors in my decision to end up at Yale.
Thanks, Michael. Wow, it seems so long ago that I gave you that tour, but that's a great memory. Anyone else?
I can speak a little bit. So I initially, unlike Michael, wanted to go far away from home because I'm from California and I wanted to go to a new place and try new things and see new things because I'd been in California for 18 years of my life at that point. And one of the colleges that was farthest away from my home was Yale. And so I applied to Yale, not really knowing anything about Yale. And then when I visited and was integrated into my host's like circle of friends in Silliman, I knew that I wanted to go here because everyone was so close. Everyone seemed so sweet, and everyone seemed so enthusiastic about just becoming friends with one another, learning from each other, and creating great memories together. And I think that was ultimately why I chose Yale over other colleges or other opportunities that were offered to me at the time.
Thanks, Jennifer. Okay.
Right. So I'll answer the next. Ask the next question. What is something you wish you knew when you were applying to and making your decisions about colleges to attend?
I wish I knew that homesickness is a really real thing. So I am originally from Chicago, and I didn't really plan to move out of state. And so I got here, the first few weeks were really exciting, but I started to really miss home and really miss my city. But I think I really did find a home throughout the various organizations I formed through my ResCo. And the AACC played a big part of that. We meet every week, multiple times. And you know, aside from your work things, it's also just a space to cultivate your identity and to share space with other Asian Americans. That was something really big for me growing up in a really diverse city where I had a lot of Asian friends and Asian American friends. Coming to Yale, it was a bit of a culture shock, but I think that the AACC sort of filled up that space for me.
Thanks very much, Steve. Anyone else?
Yeah, college choosing was very hard for me. My mother, as Asian as she can be, had very strict expectations of where I would go to school. And I think people whose parents are also immigrants would understand that. And so she was like dead set on me going to Harvard. And I hated Harvard. And it was horrible. I'm just gonna put that out there. And this is like both answering this question and the question before, but they're really like, you will make the right choice if you listen to yourself. And like, you also can't really make a wrong choice. Like if you're choosing between Yale and other schools, like you only have good options. And even if you don't end up choosing Yale, like college is what you make of it, and like you'll meet your people wherever you go. And so like, yeah, I think that Yale is an amazing place, and I chose Yale because when I asked people why they loved Yale, they said the people, and that to me was what I wanted out of college. Whereas like people at other schools in Cambridge, Massachusetts said that it was because it was Harvard. And that wasn't what I wanted. And so, but like for some people it might be. And I also know that like there are other people who have felt frustrated by certain STEM programs at Yale. And if there's another program at another school that and STEM's really important to you, I don't know if this is making any sense, but really just like listen, like, you know best, you know, and like, know, oh, Hercules, Shiraz has a cat named Hercules. But yeah, just go with your gut. And if your gut is saying Yale, come hang out with us because it's the right answer.
I think just adding on to that point also, I think in the college admissions process, it's very easy to like focus on like rankings and to focus on like numbers. And while that, you know, may be important to some people, I think it's also worthwhile to really do your research on like what support systems do colleges offer, right? Because I think you know, throughout your 4 years, like those are things that are going to matter a lot. And looking back in my first year, the things that made my first year so great were the residential college system, was Branford and my first year counselors. It was the cultural centers. It was the resources and support systems that Yale had in place for first generation low income students. And so definitely do your research into that as well. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think only, you know, a few colleges in the United States have physical cultural centers, and Yale being one of them, I think is really special. And so I think that's definitely something that really stands out, that really stood out to me during my search process.
Yes, Michael. We are one of 34 Asian American cultural centers across campus, across the United States, on college campuses. And we're actually turning 40 in 2021. So we're very excited for a big milestone and 4 decades of Asian American history at Yale. Yes, happy early birthday. So it looks like, does anyone else want to take that question from Shiraz, or should we go to the Q&A and kind of answer some questions that our audience are submitting? Sounds good.
Just as like one last thing, I feel like kind of going off what V said, as like the child of immigrants, it can be hard to navigate the college process because your parents might not be used to the sort of process that we have here. So like you might have a lot of questions, you know, and it might feel like you're super alone or that you don't have resources. You know, always feel free to, you know, reach out to people you trust, to people that you think, you know, could read your essays. Also, Matriculate is a really, really good program that I don't think a lot of people know about. I know we have a Matriculate on our campus too. So if you really are set on Yale, you can actually link up with a Matriculate person from Yale. And what they'll do is they'll like assist you through the process, remind you of deadlines, and everything's on your schedule. They'll have like video calls with you, edit your essays. And it's super, super helpful. And for me, someone who was super confused and kind of scared and like didn't really know where to start with a lot of things, it, you know, it really just taught me to relax through the process as well. So it's a good mental health resource too. Yeah. And a lot of these kids were also in your shoes, like they were also immigrants or children of immigrants. So it's a super, super good resource.
Great, thanks all. So there's actually a great question that I think we should get out there First, how is the Yale financial aid for low-income minority groups? And you can speak from your own experience.
Oh, Jen, do you want to go?
Yeah, you can go, you can go.
Okay. So I'm first and low income. And so that means I am on full financial aid because my mom makes significantly less than 75K, I think is the barrier for having a zero expected family contributions or EFC. So in some ways, Yale financial aid is extremely generous because I can go here for free. But in a lot of other ways, there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the financial aid department. I'm still doing my financial aid for my senior year. It's like still not done because they just like won't talk to me about it and like help me with it. And so yeah, it like financial aid makes it possible for low income students to come here, but at the same time, like it's often not transparent. Communication is not easy all the time. And sometimes you have to do a lot of labor that your non-low income students or friends don't have to do. But with that said, the low income community at Yale is really tight. And like we all call each other like poor friends and we're the poor community. So like, I did FSY, which is a program called First Year Scholars at Yale. And so it was like 20, I don't know how many of us there were, but we're all first and low income. And during the summer, it was a 5-week program where we were on campus and we got to take an English class and get math training. So if you have the opportunity to do FSY, please definitely do it. It changed my life. And like FSY friends are still my best friends here. And if you don't do FSY, but do identify as low income, like we will find you and we all find each other. So there is a community.
Yeah, so I guess I could just speak a little bit about my own experience with financial aid too. I think like Vi said, like they are, like the financial aid office at Yale is very generous, especially for like first generation low income students. I personally had like pretty okay experiences with the financial aid office. I think that every time I did talk to them about like changes in my financial situation, or for example, they like forgot to add on my brother to my financial aid, my younger brother, when he got into college, they like helped me through that process. And I think that they do try their best. I do agree that there still needs to be a lot of work done in the financial aid office at Yale, but I think that they do try their best to help students. And if, for example, like if the financial aid office isn't very helpful to you, I've met a lot of great professors at Yale actually who have helped me through my like, I guess like financial troubles by like hiring me in their office to work for like a semester, which was really nice. And I think that you will find resources to help you with your financial situation at Yale, even if it's not necessarily the financial aid office.
Thanks, Jennifer. I also wanted to highlight the Yale Community Initiative, which is a program that was established 3 years ago now to support first generation low income students at Yale. So I'm going to drop the link in the chat box so you can also peruse that website on your own time, just to familiarize yourself with that resource as well. So in the interest of time, I'm going to pose another question that is a little bit more academic major related. We have a couple of those. So someone wanted to know, besides ER&M, which many of you mentioned as a major, what are other opportunities for studying and learning more about diversity, different ethnicities, just topics of race and ethnicity, and yeah.
Sure, I can take this question. So you don't actually have to major in ER&M to take ER&M courses, right? So you have a lot of flexibility in Yale to sort of explore and to take really, really interesting classes, right? I think this semester, next semester, there's going to be a seminar in Asian American history. We also have a lot of first year seminars. I think there's one about Tokyo next semester, right? And so a first year seminar actually is a really good place to start because those are really small classes. There's about a dozen of you And usually it's with a really tenured professor, right? They're some of the best in their field, and it's a good exposure to sort of topics in the field. But yeah, I would just say explore. You don't have to be married to a major to take classes in it.
Right. And also, I think Yale's take classes in all different types of departments, right? Like if you're interested in classes that talk about race or ethnicity, you know, ER&M is a great department. African American Studies is a great department. There's also East Asian Studies, American Studies. I think a lot of departments have classes that relate to those topics. So definitely worth checking out the majors list on Yale's website. And every semester there are over 2,000 courses available for Yaleys. So you could just imagine like the amount of classes that there are. And so it is definitely, it's always hard to choose at the beginning of the semester because there's so many classes that I want to take, but it's always a process trying to like narrow that down a bit. And so just looking at like Yale's like requirements to obtain a bachelor's degree, you need 36 term courses. And so 12 of them are your distributional requirements, 12 of them are your major requirements, and you have 12 that are kind of like electives free to explore. So you definitely have a lot of room to just explore the various departments at Yale, see what you like, and really get to take classes that are interesting.
Also, I think it's really important to remember that there are a lot of like complexities to issues about race and justice. Like there's like environmental stuff, there's economic stuff, there's political stuff, there's like a bunch of lenses that you can look through. For example, this semester I'm taking environmental justice in South Asia, Cuba, slavery to revolution with Ann Eller, which is a great class, race, ethnicity, and immigration with Grace Cow in America, which sort of, it's stuff you already know a little bit, but it dives deeper into it. So it's really cool to like see your own experiences and like what these theorists are talking about, and Spanish as a language course. And I feel like I'm seeing like the interactions between those classes, if that makes sense, and seeing themes come up over and over again. Just remember that your first year is really your time to explore. Like don't feel like you have to have a set major when you come in. Like I honestly don't really know if I still like science or not. So I'm gonna use next semester to sort of like dive deeper into science and like compare my experiences. And feel free to do that. It's okay to be confused, you know? Yeah.
Thanks all. So we actually had a question about a class. Which class did you really like, even if it didn't really interest you? Thanks, Monica Lee, for that answer, a question.
Do you need to clarify? Are they asking like a class you didn't expect that you would like that you ended up taking?
Yep, that you
For sure.
didn't initially like were interested in, but then you ended up really liking it.
Yeah, for sure. So last semester, I took a first-year seminar called Reading Recent North American Short Fiction. And coming into college, I did not expect to ever take a class about short fiction, right? And so it was a first-year seminar, so I think there were only like 15 students with a professor, and it was a super like tight-knit class. And we really got to read short stories from a bunch of different authors from North America. And it was super interesting because the stories came from such a diverse kind of set of authors with different backgrounds and stories and perspectives, but also our professor brought us food every single class. So every week we'd get like a personalized cake made for our class that was like related to the short story that we read. And that was just an added bonus, right? Like it was just amazing that the class was just us sitting around a table, eating cake, talking about short stories. And definitely one of my favorite classes at Yale so far.
Anyone else want to take that one?
Yeah, so my favorite class is also a seminar. It's actually an English seminar. So what we mean by seminar is like smaller classes, usually about a dozen. And the English seminar I'm taking is sort of dissecting the high school experience. So I was a senior who graduated in the middle of the pandemic. So I had a lot to unpack. And we're watching like really cool pieces of media in there. Like I think one of the final movies we're watching is Clueless, the cult classic. We're also watching Sex Education and its implication for high school education. And so you get these really cool classes at Yale with topics that you wouldn't normally expect to be studied in an academic setting, but you can make some really interesting arguments and create some really interesting thought pieces from there.
Thanks, Rusty. Shiraz?
Yeah, it's another question that we see here. What is your favorite memory at Yale? So far?
There's so many. Me and my roommates, we like spent a night just like dancing in our common room and painting and listening to music, and it was super, super nice. And then we joined people outside for like a socially distanced dance party. So like I feel like even though we're in a pandemic and it's harder and like uncharted territory to socialize and stuff, we still managed to make it work and make a community, and it's been really fun. Oh, also I really like chocolate milk, and everyone's been giving me chocolate milk for like 2 weeks, and it's been amazing. But yeah.
Yeah, I think there are just like so many, right? Like now that I'm home, like the place I want to be at most right now is like Yale and New Haven. And I think in my first year, I think one of my most favorite like memories was in the AACC student kitchen. The AACC has a student kitchen that students can rent out and cook with their friends or with their like clubs. And so as part of the Chinese American Students Association, one of the events that we hold is Hotpot Night in the Asian American Cultural Center, where we set up tables and hot pot stoves, and people sign up, come in and enjoy hot pot with their friends. And I just remember just like eating with a couple of friends in the kitchen and like just making food, sharing funny stories, having a good time. And so definitely one of my favorite moments from my first year.
I think one of my favorite memories at Yale was actually with my like Korean class. We went to like this restaurant called Barbecue Chicken, like near my res college, and it was just so nice getting like a meal in a restaurant at the very end of the semester when it was cold with my whole Korean class, which I like really loved because we all bonded so much during the semester through our struggles with the language and just talking about fun experiences together. And it was just so nice because our professor just bought us all food, and it was really nice just getting to know one another like without using Korean, because I feel like it's a little different when you talk in like English versus Korean. Like I feel like because our vocabulary is more diverse with our English, we're able to say more things. And so I think that was one of my favorite memories, just getting to know everyone in my Korean class in a different way from how I usually got to know them.
Thanks for sharing that, Jen. Anyone else want to jump in before we move on to the next question? Because we have a lot. Okay. There was a question from Anna that now I have to try and find because so many of you are asking such great questions. And we will try to either respond to them live or answer via chat or type our answers in. So hang in there. But Anna asked a really great question. And they said, Was the AACC at Yale your first opportunity to be part of a cultural center on campus? And how has your participation in it personally impacted each of you?
I think it just sort of gave me a little taste of home, if that makes sense. Like I'm a first year, so I haven't been here too long, but I feel like you definitely get like a little bit of loneliness or like missing your mother's or your father's cooking, you know? Like you miss the traditions that were celebrated back home. But being able to talk about them, to get excited about them, to celebrate them with other people who feel the same way as you do and hear about what they celebrate is just really, really nice. So I really come to love all the conversations we have, you know, whether it be at weekly staff meetings or one-on-ones. It's been really nice. Yeah.
I think for me, something that was really valuable that I learned through the AACC and its affiliate organizations was more about Asian American history in a broader sense and also in the context of Yale. And then also just like being more politically aware and engaged in the Asian American community. I think that is something that that I really learned about and just became more aware of. And I think that was super important in my time in college so far.
Thanks, Michael. Shiraz?
Okay, so there's a lot of questions being asked, and what I'm going to try to do is consolidate 8 of them into one, because I know there's a lot of questions about the AACC and the resources it provides. So shout out to folks who both anonymously and just straightforward ask questions. Just to kind of summarize the questions asked, I'm going to try my best to answer this. The overarching question was if we can explain the resources the AACC has to offer and how to utilize them. But then some other things to touch on is how does it differ from affinity groups? Does it include different sub or Asian identities, including Indian, South Asian, East Asian, etc. And then we'll talk, and then we'll also talk about just like what students usually utilize. So overall, the Asian American Culture Center, I like to say, is both a physical space and an entity. So we're an entity because we're here. We're not in our building, we're here with you all. We're the Asian American Culture Center being presented here. However, we also have a physical space located on 295 Crown Street, which has existed since 1981. Essentially, you can utilize the AACC both being at the space, being in the building, but also attending our events and being a part of our community through our different opportunities that we have, whether it's a student employment job, if it's volunteering, if it's one of our, we have roughly 60 student organizations you can join. They range from performance groups to political groups to community service groups. So a wide variety of groups that you can really be a part of, and not even just be a member, but you can also be involved and take leadership roles in there as well. Our center, being called the Asian American Cultural Center, is for everyone. Its name, was really come from student activism, and we want to emphasize that this space is not only for undergraduate students, but it's also for international students, it's for South Asian students, it's for Southeast Asian students, East Asian students, a wide variety of just, you name it, including just like our graduate and undergraduate population. So that's something that sometimes people also realize, like, whoa, you're a grad student, I didn't know that. And so that's a space that we also have for our community. And then just to make sure I have anything else here, students typically, they decide how they want to join. We've had our community join by, when we have our, right now this year, we have our physical space closed due to COVID-19 and to maintain social distancing. But during a typical year, we have students that will just hang out. They'll cook a meal and study. They'll go to our game room and have a karaoke night. They'll host Hotpot Night and cook a big meal and transform our center into a 2-floor dining hall. You know, you never know what can happen, but it's really amazing to see what a space can really do for our community, and then also just being an entity on campus and what we provide for everyone. And really, the thing to emphasize is we want to do these programs so that you know that we are here for you. This is a safe space for you. You can, if you're missing home, if you're, you know, want to continue, you know, delving into your identity, you can come here. If you're not familiar and you want to learn more about your identity or other identities within the Asian diaspora, you can come here as well. And so that's kind of, I wanted to say a nutshell of things. There's so many things I can talk about, but definitely check out our website. There's so much you can learn about that. I'm going to share the link in a second, just a few links that are all on the website, but just to get you started if you want to learn more about our center.
Okay, thanks, Shiraz. Anyone else want to add anything about what they want folks to know about the AACC? Well, there was a question from Namira about how interconnected are all the other cultural houses with the AACC. So we meet as professional staff who oversee the center. We meet on a weekly basis. Our staff do trainings, annual trainings together, and also we highly encourage and recommend collaboration throughout the academic year. So thanks, Namira, for that question. What are favorite traditions and events in the AACC? I think Michael already named one. How about others? I know, too many to pick from, but just pick one.
Every year, the Vietnamese Student Association does a pho night, and it's the funnest thing ever. And like all of the Viets at Yale are in the AACC kitchen making pho at the same time, and it's insane. And there's way too many of us in the kitchen at once, and everyone is shouting like domestic Vietnamese language at each other, and like no matter, like I don't speak Viet very well, but like, you know, domestic Viet when you hear it. And so it's just very fun. And it's just like such a pure moment of like family at Yale. So food is always central.
Michael, I just saw your message about the Welcome Back BBQ. I think that one's also one of my favorite events, just because I get to like see everyone that I love and cherish all in the same place at once at the beginning of the school year. I think it's just a great way to start off the semester. Everyone is attracted by the food, but you stay for the people. And I think that's one of my favorite events that the AACC holds. But I'm also part of KC, which is the Korean American Students at Yale, and it's an affiliate organization of the AACC. And my favorite event that we hold is a cultural show, which is basically when students who are interested in Korean culture or are part of the Korean American community at Yale organize performances together, like dance performances, spoken word, or like a cappella, and we just all perform in like the big building, or I think it's like a classroom, SSS together, and it's a lot of fun, and it happens every spring.
Thanks, Jennifer. So we had a couple questions about whether folks, you know, given kind of the current climate and how all of you identify, have any of you faced any particular difficulties around being Asian identifying at Yale?
So I've mentioned my homesickness. I really have been homesick because there's not a lot, like I'm very used to going to the local grocery store and getting all my favorite like Filipino and Asian snacks readily available, but there are, I think, 2 Asian markets near Yale that don't really carry everything that I need. And so it's just been a little isolating as a Southeast Asian to be in a space, in a market that sort of caters towards East Asians. But I've had to be really creative in sort of finding like little pockets of my culture here and there. And when I did find them, like it really helped. Talking to my friends also really helped. So some people asked about more specific cultural groups. There is a Filipino club at Yale, and we met up and just sort of talked about like our favorite foods and like all sorts of aspects of Filipino culture. And that really helped me to sort of settle in and find my place here.
Thanks, Rusty. You can also say there have been no challenges related to my racial identity. That's fine too. But yeah, I don't want to put words in your mouth. So
Yeah, I think for me, like the AACC has just been such a welcoming and like supportive community throughout my time at Yale. Specifically in my first year, my peer liaison was just absolutely fantastic. Like, not only did she connect me to all the like resources and events at the AACC, but she would always bake for us. She would always treat us out to meals in the city. And you know, she really was like an older sister almost. And I think that really, really, you know, impacted my first year in such a positive way, and is such a large reason why like last year I also applied to be a peer liaison, and now I have like my own group of first years. And I'm like trying to fill her shoes because she was just such a wonderful mentor and friend for me in my first year. And so I think the peer liaisons are such an incredible resource too at Yale, that I would definitely recommend y'all looking into. And there are peer liaisons for all the cultural centers and all the resource offices as well. So the Office of LGBTQ Resources has peer liaisons. The chaplain's office has peer liaisons. The Office of International Students and Scholars also has peer liaisons. And so PLs are kind of just one of the many resources that you'll have in your first year at Yale.
thanks, Michael. Anyone else want to take that question? Okay, I'm gonna pose a question for all of you. What is one of the most surprising things about your Yale experience thus far?
So I've only ever experienced Yale in a pandemic, but it still has been really great. So, you know, decision day came around the time when everything closed. So everything about Yale for me has been virtual, but I've still managed to form some really great communities online, right? So the Yale 2024 GroupMe, kind of iconic, and there's a lot of subgroup that spawned out of that. So I formed a really good Asian community coming in. The LGBTQ chat has also been popping, right? And so, you know, even though we're in a pandemic, forming those online relationships has been really great. And that's a sort of current, like, recurring theme that you'll see at Yale, like this idea of community. Everyone is really open and warm and really ready to form those relationships. And I'm excited to see how that translates once this pandemic is over.
Thanks, Rusty. The class of 2024 definitely has had to form a bond in a really unique moment. Others?
I can go. almost at the end of my Yale career now, because I am a senior, which is really sad. But I think one thing that surprised me a lot about my journey at Yale, or like my time at Yale, is just the relationships that I've made. I feel like when I was younger, my mom told me that the friends that I make now in like middle school or high school are gonna be my friends forever. But like I feel like the friends that I made in college are people that I will continue to interact with and see throughout the rest of my life, because I've made so many meaningful connections here. I guess another thing, relation to academics, is that I realized that learning can be really, really fun. I feel like in high school, I was always stressed about trying to get really good grades to like get into a good school. But right now I feel like learning is not just for the sake of like becoming a successful like person. It's for also like, you know, just learning more about the world and getting to know people and becoming more knowledgeable, I guess.
And going back to what V said, your college experience is really truly what you make of it. Like a lot of it comes from you just starting conversations or taking the first step, you know, sending that email. Like there have been times where like I'm like, hey, this might be weird. I'm Sunaira from your bio class. Like, do you want to hang out? Do you want to grab something? And you know, again, it's super hard to navigate stuff during a pandemic, but there still has been ways to, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's really just about like seeking out those opportunities and joining those clubs and joining those groups. So yeah, you'll be fine. I actually, like the other day, I like clicked with Kane because we talked about just how hard it was to cross the street in our countries, and we both thought we were talking about the same country because I said Dhaka, which is a city, not a country, and he thought I was saying Dakar, and it was like this funny moment. But yeah, just it's been really cute and nice. Yeah.
Thanks, y'all. So what's something you wish you had known when applying to college, and any advice for your high school seniors out in the audience? Or what would you have told yourself as a high school senior knowing what you know now?
Take a break if you can't write. Like honestly, take a break from it, take a breather. If you don't have anything, like any juice in you, just relax and remember that it's not the end of the world if you don't have ideas at the moment. Also, I find that it's really helpful to just spitball sometimes, like just to write like any dumb idea that comes in your head. And also remember that you're never gonna really have like one draft of a question, and it's okay to like keep writing and rewriting. And also, it's helpful to revisit the place that memory happened if you can, because it kind of motivates you to write, if that makes sense. As a last note, I'd say, I know these are like mainly tips about essays, but nothing is too small to write about if it's truly meaningful to who you are and the passions that you have. Unless it's like a flex. If it's just a flex that's meaningless, please just keep that in the flexing part of your applications. Like reserve your essays for more like meaningful or personal experiences. Yeah.
Adding on to that, I think it's easy to like try craft an image that you think the admissions office will like and therefore accept. And I think it's very easy to get lost in that type of like belief, like, right, like I have to emphasize these points in order for them to consider me. And I think you kind of just need to realize that like people, the admissions officers are people too, and they just want to get to know a bit more about you. And so really taking that time to think about yourself and what really matters about yourself and what you really want to reveal about yourself, I think that is good. And also just being authentic and genuine on your application. I think, you know, just being true to who you are and your values will really, you know, that will bring your application to life. And so taking time to brainstorm and think, and then also putting your authentic self on the application. I think those are the best tips I can offer.
Yeah, so sort of going off of authenticity, I would much rather a college reject me for a really authentic essay than me trying to craft an essay, you know, that was geared towards a college that wasn't necessarily true or wasn't necessarily genuine, right? Someone told me that the college process would be really revealing and at times sort of cathartic, and I didn't believe them until I actually went through the process, because it is a lot of writing about yourself and thinking about yourself and sort of what your place in the world is, which is a lot to ask of a high school senior. So definitely take that time to reflect. And if you do it right, you can come out of the process a lot more mature than when you came in.
I think as a follow-up, recognizing that we are currently in the middle of a pandemic, how did you take care of your mental health, both during the college process and while you were settling in? And I know some of us might still be working through how, but I think that's totally okay too.
Was the question mental health during college, Deanie?
Yep, and also during the process, because you know when you're applying, it's clearly a very stressful and can be a very stressful process. So how did you kind of think, you know, center your mental health, or maybe how you wish you did more of it?
Yeah, it was hard. I don't know. I mean, like my family, it was, I mean, by the time I was applying, it was just me and my mom, and my sister had already left the nest, and we were low income, and my mom, like Sunaira was saying before, like my mom is a parent that doesn't know a lot about the college admission cycle. So it can be super isolating, and that's like valid, and many people are feeling that way. So like reach out definitely to the people around you. My friends from home were like my hugest supporters. While writing my abs, while waiting, and even after deciding, like they've been there since day one. So lean on the people around you. And in terms of mental health during college, like it's still a journey, and I've done a lot of therapy. Yale is great in that we have free mental health services here. So like you can get a therapist anytime. And now they actually just changed it so that you can get a walk-in appointment the day that you call, which is huge. And I know friends from like in-state colleges at home who have to pay for therapy still at their own school. So that's something that like people like me who have been doing it encourage all of my friends to get therapy while we're here. I do group therapy, I do behavioral therapy, I've done one-on-one therapy, I've done psychiatry for medicine. So yeah, I can tell you more if you have specific questions about that. Woody asked, does Yale charge for mental health services? No, yeah, again, it's free, completely free. Yale mental health has a lot of problems. There are not enough therapists of color, but yeah, it is free. So.
Thanks, Fee. Anyone else want to chime in? As we are nearing the end of our time together so quickly. This just flew by. But thank you all for being so engaged and, you know, having so many great questions. Okay, so as a wrap up, is there a final piece of advice that any of you want to share with our prospective students who have joined us from all over the country today?
I truly believe that every single one of you is going to crush the game so hard. You're going to kill the game dead, okay? Like, I want you to go in your mirror and be like, I'm going to kill this game dead, because you are. And once you get to whatever college you're going to, hopefully this one, I hopefully will see you at Berkeley next year, because Berkeley's the best. But whatever college you go to, you're going to make it so, so great. And you're going to crush it dead. And I'm proud of all of you. Take care of yourselves.
Thank you, Sunaira, for those good vibes. Others?
Yeah, I think especially now, like we have so many like layers of like challenges in our lives with a global pandemic, with environmental crises, with so many things in our lives. I think definitely keep, checking in on yourself, making sure that you're feeling okay physically, mentally, emotionally. I think that's most important. And then also just, I think in terms of like college admission stuff, like things will work out in the end. They always do when it comes to admissions. And so just go with what feels right at the end. And when reach that point, you'll know what feels right, and with, go with what you think will be best for you. And hopefully that is Yale and Branford College, not Berkeley. And hopefully I will see you in our beautiful courtyard.
Yes, and to clarify, it wasn't Berkeley University, but Berkeley Residential College.
I'm actually gonna also say something too. Thanks for sharing, y'all. I think, we definitely would love to have all of you here, and just thinking about the different places that I've been and worked in and being at Yale, it's, make the most of your experience. And there's a caveat to it to say there's a lot of things to do, and so don't overwhelm yourself, but find something, and something that you can really enjoy, and almost like to say, like, it removes you from like all the academics and all the things you're doing, but it also brings you joy and brings you happiness. And so it could be Yale related, it might not be. The AACC is just one of the many things that Yale has to offer. And I can, toot our horn and definitely say that there's a lot of really great opportunities here, whether it's a one-off event that you go for your 4 years, or if you become a staffer here, or become a student org leader. And we wanted to say that, if you do come here, we really are looking forward to getting to know you. For me personally, I get so much energy from you all. And so it really does mean a lot when I get to know your stories and get to hear about you and work with you and support you all, just like our staff here. And so looking forward to hopefully seeing you in the future. And if not, best of luck in your future endeavor.
Yes, thank you all. We are a minute over time, and we so appreciate all of you spending your hour with us. Thank you to our amazing panelists and folks behind the scenes for making this happen. And we wish you all the best in your application process. We send you much love, and we are all about community care. So look out for one another. These are challenging days, but we know that together we will make it through. So see you all soon.